Let's get right over to NBC's national political correspondent, Steve Kornacki, who joins us from the big board. You've been name-checked a couple of times. You have a lot you're watching here. Let's start with Florida. I mean, just talk to us about what you're seeing. Anything deviating from what we expected thus far? Yeah,
Ellison, I mean, take a look right now. This is the race where we're just starting to get returns. The 1st District of Florida. This is the Panhandle, Northwest Florida, Pensacola based. And you can see, look, they count the vote real fast in Florida. 37% of all the votes in this district have now been counted. Now, if you're a Democrat, you're probably looking at the screen and saying, wow, this is fantastic. The Democrat gave Vallimont 3 points ahead of the Republican, Jimmy Patronis, with more than a third of the vote in. 2 things to keep in mind, though. Number one, the way they count the votes in Florida, the reason they can do it this quickly is because the vote by mail and the early vote, the votes that people cast before Election Day, they can get those all ready to go before polls close, and they just spit them all out at once, basically. Each county does when the polls close. Those votes, early votes, vote by mail, tend to be much more Democratic than votes that are cast on Election Day. So the most Democratic votes are the ones that get reported out first. So this is kind of probably the high watermark that you can expect if you're a Democrat, with still a lot of votes to come in. Because what's going to start to happen in this district now is votes cast today on Election Day, much more Republican votes. That's certainly the pattern we saw earlier in the 6th District where the Republican candidate won. That pattern suggests there's a lot more Republican votes. And in fact, there you could just see it. We just got, in the time I was talking, remember it was 37%. Now it's moved up to 49%. We've got half the vote counted in this district. And what had been a 3-point advantage there for the Democrat has basically been erased. Now it's 0.4 of 1 point, just 357 votes separating the Democrat and the Republican here. We could break this down one level further. There are four counties or parts of counties that are in this district. And the Democratic strength is coming from here right now. This is Escambia County. You can see this is where Pensacola is. Now, this is one of the most Republican districts overall in Florida. This is probably the most Democratic part of this extremely Republican district. And what you're getting here with 56% of the vote, this is primarily vote that was cast before Election Day. So this is the most Democratic vote from the most Democratic part of the district. It's also the largest county in the district. And what that all adds up to is, again, Vallimont at 49.8% right here. But you can expect the rest of the way there in Escambia County and these other counties, it'll probably be a much more Republican vote. Meaning, if you're the Republicans, you're actually feeling good right now about winning this seat, about holding on to the seat. But as we've been talking about, a question tonight is not just do Republicans win these seats? After all, they're very Republican districts. Do they match President Trump's margin last year, or has it come down? It came down big time earlier tonight in the 6th District. I can show you that. Almost all the votes are in. The Republicans are going to win by 11 points. Check this out. In November, Trump won this by 30 points. So Democrats have shaved nearly 20 points off that Trump margin. Democrats are going to lose, but they're going to have a bragging right they can take out of this. They're going to say, look, we overperformed expectations. And again, take a look at this 1st district, still 49% in. This is what it looked like back in November. Trump won this district by nearly 40 points. We're seeing basically a tie at this point, again, with a lot of Republican vote probably still outstanding. But I think you're looking potentially at a very similar storyline emerging in this 1st district in the Panhandle that we saw so far in the 6th district, which is to say Democrats cutting pretty significantly into that Trump margin from November.
What does that tell us? Because these are, as you said, 2 districts that aren't toss-ups. They lean red. We're talking about Waltz and Gates seats. They were most likely going to stay red. But depending on how big we see the margins move compared to what Trump did, what would it mean moving forward? What would either side take from that?
Yeah, so it's going to be a debate, I think, in the coming days, because what Democrats will tell you, or certainly what they want people to be looking at, is saying, well, look, the Trump administration's a few months old. This indicates there's a backlash. In a Republican district, voters are turning against him. What you see, though, here is that the overall turnout, we saw this certainly earlier tonight, and I expect to see this in the 1st district. There's a lot fewer people voting today than voted in November. A presidential election gets the highest turnout overall. Everyone takes part in the presidential election. In a special election on April 1st, it doesn't get that kind of high turnout. In fact, there we go. New update. The Republicans taking the lead right here. And what we've seen for the last few years is that Democrats have been more motivated in special elections than Republicans have been. It didn't translate into a win for Democrats in the presidential, but they've had success in special elections like this. And you can see now 2/3 of the vote in, the Republican now ticking up to a 3-point lead here in the 1st district. So again, is this about people changing their minds, or is this about a lower turnout environment where the Democratic base, we've just seen this now for so long, is so exercised to get out and vote in any and every election, whereas the Republican base is very energized to go out and vote for Donald Trump when he's on the ballot, but not necessarily in a race where there's no Trump on the ballot.
All right, a lot to watch. Steve Kornacki, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.